The culture is absolutely...
The gut ain't running there. Calling both games.
Philly's offseason has been relatively quiet as well, but they're in a far more positive situation than their rivals. They unexpectedly made the playoffs last season, and despite a few departures on the offensive line, the Eagles are looking to make a splash on defense. They did so with Hassan Reddick. As an edge, he should be a vaunted foe in the front four. He'll pair well with Fletcher Cox, who was cut and then re-signed at a cheaper rate. Something has me wondering, though. What's their next move? They do have 3 first-round picks to play with. They were rumored to be looking at a QB, but maybe they think Jalen Hurts has more upside than he shows. There are a lot of options they can take moving forward. I'm interested to see what they do.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Jordan Davis, defensive tackle, Georgia.
3 straight trade-ups in the draft. Welcome to Chaos Land. Philadelphia had a shit ton of ammo to play with, and they shot up the boards to make sure they got the next Fletcher Cox. Jordan Davis is a guy I wanted on the Steelers due to need and scheme fit, but Davis works as a 3-tech as well. The main complaint about him is that he's a 2-down lineman who isn't a great fit for the modern game, but you can always use a presence in the middle of the D-line. It forces offenses to plan around you. That's why they were so valuable in the 90s and 2000s. With Davis's athletic gifts, should be the same. No matter what happens from here on out, we can safely say that the Eagles have secured their greatest win since the Super Bowl. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is God. His evil can no longer harm you, Philly. They even managed to kill the final boss of Jalen Reagor. These victories are to be celebrated with the acquisition of A.J. Brown. With that hefty extension they signed him to, and with Devontae Smith flanking him, it could be the piece that elevates the Eagles back to the soaring heights of years long gone. Their secondary has added James Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well, but we all know what makes or breaks them this season. And it hurts to say, but it's Jalen. I feel terrible for making that shitty dad joke. You shouldn't feel terrible for him, however. He has the opportunity that NFL players dream of. The chance to carry a team on his back. Sink or swim time, Jalen. The same can be said for the Eagles. They fail, they have a shit ton of draft capital. They'll fix it by throwing everything at the wall. Even with the teams that are choosing to blow it up and start from scratch, there is still plenty of intrigue with the NFC. So many teams desperate to win a championship or go far into January. And even more trying to make a name for themselves. The NFC East hasn't had a repeat champion in years. So I'm going to maintain that narrative and pick Philly to win it. The NFC North is still Green Bay's to lose, but they're slowly losing grip on their stronghold. The NFC South has a few suitors, but the Bucs are still too loaded to really fail unless they get injured to hell and back. The NFC West? Huge question mark, but I think the Rams are still the team to beat. But what about the wild cards? It's tough to choose, there are so many good options here. In this case, I'm choosing the Niners, Saints, and Vikings. Yes, the Vikings. I think people are sleeping on them. Then again, we've said this about them before, only for them to fall apart. Sorry about that, Minnesota. The Detroit Lions are a nuisance. They may be lacking things like a franchise QB or a cohesive defense or developed players, but they'll run through walls. To see Philadelphia beat the shit out of them with their new offensive weapons is no surprise. But once again, the Lions are a pain in the ass. The only way to kill them is to burn the body, with a wooden stake in its heart. Even then, its spirit will merely infect another live host. Detroit may be down by multiple scores in the fourth, but they don't give a shit. They'll make it a game. They're going to come out and give Philly an endless wave of heart attacks because they can't seemingly stop the Lions' offense. It took a long plotting drive by Philly to kill the last bit of life Detroit had. As I said, complete pain in the fucking ass to play against. We saw this last year. Philly just learned it firsthand with a ton of battle wounds. They won, but it took a pound of flesh to do it. My condolences to those that face the Lions later on. There are 2 Monday Night Football games this week? I was wondering why the West Coast Invitational wasn't week 1, but the NFL is apparently trying out something new, which means it'll be a regular occurrence soon enough. Perhaps the Eagles will be a team consistently featured in this new Monday night slot. Flashing new talent and a complete performance, they shut down any naysayers like Darius Slay clamped Justin Jefferson's production. Not to mention, Jalen Hurts has shown some flashes of being a big-time quarterback. With his offensive weapons, this team can make noise against a group other than Minnesota. You think Kirk Cousins is going to offer resistance? It's a Monday night game. This is his version of Stage 5-2 on Ninja Gaiden. That made sure this wasn't a contest. Easy win for the Eagles. Perhaps too easy. I, for one, am all in favor of simply allowing Philly to annex FedEx Field for their own. They do a better job playing there as well. What is defense? If you're a commie, you don't have enough manpower to simply throw waves of cannon fodder at the Eagles. Instead, Jalen Hurts and company will destroy this paper tiger faster than you can hand Jack Del Rio a pink slip. Carson Wentz had a chance at revenge against the team that cast him off, and he succeeded at bringing endless joy to the fans of the Eagles. His offensive line merely proved them all right by giving up 9 sacks. Another easy breeze of a win is Philly's reward. How's Ron Rivera as the new age Mike Shanahan working out for you, Washington? His seat better be searing right now. Even if they're not perfect, it can't be denied that Jacksonville is a much stronger team than the last few years. Call it the homecoming effect. Doug Peterson is returning to the land where he won a ring, and then baffled with an inoffensive decision-making afterwards. Early on, the momentum was much in the Jags' favor. With a 14-0 lead, it was looking to be an absolute assertion of dominance. But this is the first lesson a young team must learn: overcoming self-inflicted wounds. Duval had a ton of them throughout the game. While it was raining, that's no excuse at this level. Trevor Lawrence can't botch snaps and fumble 4 times. With a team like Philly eager to stay undefeated, mistakes must be kept to a minimum. Impetus for action was taken by the Eagles, who proceeded to soar past their slumping opponent to maintain superiority overall in the NFL. Like many in this season, Doug Peterson did not get revenge against those that slighted him. He must settle for second best again. To be fair, it is an easy opponent to lose to. Keep your head up, Jacksonville. There will be other battles to fight. It's time for another episode of How Can the Cardinals Beat Both Their Opponent and Cliff Kingsbury to Win a Game? Philly is going to be a very tough challenge all its own. They're undefeated for a reason, and Arizona's offense is once again struggling to gain any traction early on. Might be time for a change on the play calling front, no? Of course not. While the Eagles look strong, the Cardinals' defense is going to manage to play up to potential. They're giving Jalen Hurts fits. The Philly machine is breaking down as Vance Joseph is probably throwing a bunch of shit in between the gears. As they do their job, Kyler Murray will manage to bail out the coach that holds him back to help Arizona tie the game. Fortunately for the fans in attendance, the Eagles managed to repair their machine to get back to the red zone. But they are stuffed. Wisely, Philly chooses to take the points. But here is where high-end talent comes in. Kyler is pushing the ball by himself. The kind of stuff that makes us wonder what he could do in a real system. He sprints down the field, slides to a stop in field goal range with seconds left, as Kyler proceeds to spike the ball to stop the clock. On 3rd and 1. They can't challenge the spot of the ball even if it was a first down. That's piss poor situational awareness. That's on coaching. And Arizona's now forced to kick for the tie. The problem is that Matt Prater's injured. You have to settle for Matt Amendola.
It's up there. It's out there.
Unreal.
And it's no good in the direction.
I'm surprised someone signed Amendola after his awful showing with the Chiefs. Like many things in Arizona, all efforts to try and carry the team to a win by sheer talent alone are denied. Because as we know from baseball, Philly always manages to execute Cardinals. Dallas fans sure talked a lot of shit before this week. The Eagles are frauds, they said. They'll bow down to the might of the blue and white star, they said. After this match, they'll move the goalpost by saying they were starting a backup quarterback. Yes, Cooper Rush did suck in this game, but quit sleeping on the fucking Eagles. I hate anything resembling Philadelphia, yet even I can acknowledge that this team is legit. You boys can as well. You'll inhale copium and say it's cute how you snuck back into the game, but Philly will continue to fly into the night. Do you see the bullshit happening with the Phillies? The devil magic has spread to the Eagles, and they have soared overall in the NFL, much to the chagrin of the rest of us. Talk your shit, Philly. You've more than earned the right to do so. Oh boy, a cross-state rivalry where the Eagles make Pittsburgh die like the steel mills. What a tremendous moment for us all. The fuck are you guys? Hey, what are you doing? Hey, stop touching me! I want my goddamn phone call! Tonight, on Days of Our Steelers, the shameless remakes continuous, there is no creativity in media whatsoever. Everywhere you look, the black and gold brigade is falling to pieces. Without endless bullshit and high-end talent to bail them out, Philadelphia took no time in dissecting their opponent. Turns out it's hard to win football games when you take a ton of penalties and have no one to cover A.J. Brown. Or anyone to cover Kenny Pickett in the pocket. In this destruction, Kenny went scorched earth in the post-game press conference. The team doesn't study enough. They keep making the same fuck-ups over and over again. Mike Tomlin and his assistants sit around looking like expired coaching products. Philly dominated so blatantly that Batman made an appearance on the sidelines. Will the Steelers do anything to right the ship? Or will they simply chuck TJ Watt out there to drunkenly stumble back to 500? Like losing ways are slowly consuming the franchise, so are the days of our Steelers. Welcome to the NFL, where the rules are made up and the records don't matter. When you see an undefeated franchise against a tank rivaling the M1 Abrams, sheer destruction is expected everywhere you look. Your biggest mistake was trying to use logic. There is none. Houston will come out like a bat out of hell with Dameon Pierce and make it a contest. You know the end is near when the game is tied at half. However, there are reputations to uphold. Davis Mills is a better man than all of us. He's so dedicated to being a tank general that he'll help the team to draft his eventual replacement. His turnovers helped Philly to escape from the claws of humiliation. The Eagles remain undefeated. Can't really shit on Houston that much. Keeping it competitive for 2 quarters is an accomplishment all its own. Many a hater have claimed the Eagles to be fraudulent. Their schedule is paper soft. They've had no real test to prove themselves thus far. The hater waits for their downfall to an opponent they should crush and celebrate the occasion. In this game, they may have had a point. Credit the commies for concocting a solid offensive strategy. The art form of hold on to the damn ball for as long as humanly possible. They had possession for over 2/3 of the game. The Eagles defense just couldn't make a damn stop when they needed to. It's hilarious. This is a team that's being investigated by DC's Attorney General. And team lawyers threw Brian Robinson in their statement in the ultimate whataboutism. The Eagles can't punish this faux pas, as A.J. Brown had the ball ripped out of his hands. Philly is unforgiving to failure, and they boo their team as they fall behind at half. Immediately falling a half to go down by 2 scores, even worse in their eyes. There are reputations to maintain, damn it! Look at this touchdown drive and see the Eagles' potential for yourself. Washington doesn't have to counter in kind. They'll gladly throw an interception to give Philly a chance to lead. Begin the great conspiracy of Philadelphia. This critical fumble should have never been called. Zebras missed a blatant face mask on Goddard on the play. Fortunately, the defense stiffens up and only allows a field goal, but it still stings. Take 2 on the comeback drive.
He's done it twice in the NFL. This one a shot. Watkins a diving catch. Ball comes out.
Jesus, man, just lie down and fight another day. No need to play hero ball when you're playing Washington. With Philly about to get the ball back, this can't get any more embarrassing for them, right?
They're going to throw on 3rd down and 7. Instead, Heineke wisely, and now a flag. And that's going to, in essence, end the game.
An undefeated season in the balance, and you're going to end the game like that. Right call or not, if I'm those officials, I'd hire extra security detail to escape Philly. There's a good chance the majority of the city now wants your heads lined by the Rocky statue. You know what else I'm hearing? The 72 Dolphins live on for another year. 50 years of lordship over a populace that doesn't care. Pretty impressive, I'd say. Philly has really opened my eyes these last few weeks. And not in the good way. Remind me of Steelers teams in the recent past. Heinously playing down to competition. Okay, football gods, it's not funny to watch teams struggle to Jeff Saturday's Colts anymore. That joke was hilarious for like a week. Short shelf lives and all, they're simply allowing the Eagles to fail to do anything on the offensive side of the ball. Stalled drives, brutal penalties, endless fuck-ups. This is the kind of game that gets you shit on relentlessly by the rest of the football world. Your defense is clamping down on Matty Ice as best as they can. They didn't bring in Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph just for you to lie down and die. Look, the defense is forcing Indy to fumble, allowing you a chance to return to prominence as a contender. What do the Eagles do? Well, give the ball right back to them. It is the season of giving, after all. It allows Indy to kick a field goal to go up by 6. This is when Philly is reminded that, yes, they are playing the Colts. They are supposed to win. All of those undefeated Jeff Saturday memes are young, but they still need to be killed for the sake of the brand. And we know just the man to do it.
Hurts will run. Takes it in. Touchdown.
Wow, I'm so impressed at you being bailed out by high-end talent after shitting the bed for 55 minutes. You won in spite of yourselves. Go give your cocks a nice tug for this ugly-ass win. Get your shit together, Philly. Not every opponent is going to be the goddamn Colts. This is why you have to win the games you're supposed to win, Green Bay. Because if the Giants, Washington, and Detroit didn't humiliate you, you wouldn't have to try and achieve the impossible. You wouldn't have to fail miserably at trying to stop the Eagles' potent rushing attack. Attempting to stop Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders went about as well as Aaron Rodgers touring a Pfizer facility. It was a throwback to the mid-2010s. The Packers caught in an offensive gauntlet against a team that dissects their awful defense apart. At least this Green Bay unit has the excuse of missing players and missing logic from Joe Barry for their performance. Unfortunately for you, the record does not care for technicalities. It only cares for results. The Packers can fight and claw all they want, but it won't be enough. Philly's doing everything in their power to self-destruct and hand them the game, but Green Bay never had a grasp on anything stable. And if you thought it was over before, it surely is now. Aaron Rodgers was knocked out of the game due to injury. Without Boris Ben, I consider shutting him down. The season's lost, and you have to see what you have in Jordan Love. He did well in his limited playtime for what it's worth. The Eagles kept tripping over themselves, but their offense is too talented to let repeated fuck-ups ruin their day. Victory is theirs. However, they've been looking mighty fraudulent these past few weeks. You sure you want to imitate the 2020 Steelers? A.J. Brown will have his revenge. The Titans' failure to pay this man what he desired will instead be paid by means of blood and limbs. Philadelphia barely broke a sweat against these boys. The key is clear. You stop King Henry, this offense becomes flaccid. When faced with such a daunting task, Tennessee just shut down. The Eagles' offense soared to heights we haven't seen in a week, as Devontae Smith and their former savior A.J. Brown destroyed them through the air. Almost 400 yards of passing from Jalen Hurts. A delicious feast for his targets all game long. The Titans respond by losing Christian Fulton during the game, which is only another sting to a season that will probably end in a wildcard loss at home. Solid bounce-back game for Philly after the past few weeks. I find Tennessee to be completely fraudulent, but you have to make examples of those you are far superior than. Giants, I think your 15 minutes might be up. It was a hell of a ride, I'll admit, but you were punching well above your weight class. With how they lack health and talent and a game plan where Saquon is stuffed and everything else, it was only a matter of time before they fell off. The Eagles were in your same spot a bit ago. They don't want to go back there again. They will destroy whatever is supposed to be resembling a defense for the G-Men. Absolute annihilation by land, air, sea, and probably by underground tunnels. Philadelphia picked off every opponent on the field one by one. And there was no mercy. Especially not for a division rival. The NFC East is so elated that A.J. Brown's in their division that they want to hire John Robinson simply so they can immediately fire him. New York, your playoff hopes still exist, but is it really worth it at this point? You're just gonna get piped in the wildcard round by a superior opponent. If you happen to make it there, you may just face off against, well, look at that, Philadelphia! The playoff push is reaching its final stages. Only one spot has been clinched by Philadelphia, but 4 weeks remain. Philadelphia obviously has number 1 seed, but the division is still up for grabs. Minnesota, after an ugly loss this past week, is still 2nd seed, and the NFC North is technically secured as well. The torrid pace of the Niners has them starting to run away with the West in 3rd place right now. But the NFC South is best not discussed. Tampa Bay only has it because the division is straight up awful. Meanwhile, Dallas is sitting pretty with 10 wins and first wild card. After that, it's a mosh pit. Washington and the Giants are currently tied at 7-5-1, and Seattle struggling to maintain form with an easy schedule. Detroit's creeping up though, and don't forget the rest of the garbage in the NFC South still has a chance. The picture will become clearer as time goes on. And as we all know, there's only one rule to follow.
Don't get eliminated!
So close yet so far away. This is the story of the Chicago Bears. A team with an electrifying talent blossoming into his own QB and little else. For them, an unprecedented win is always within reach, but they just can't come up with it. The Eagles felt unchallenged by the Bears in their current state. So they amplified the pressure by committing gobs upon gobs of unforced errors on offense to keep this a game. Or maybe it's to keep fans interested for advertising purposes. I think Justin Fields is good enough for doing that all on his own. But even then, he isn't goddamn Houdini and can't pull wins out of his ass. Philly's defense stiffens up, and the Bears just can't keep pace, despite the Eagles doing everything in their power to hand them a win. Know how sloppy they were? They had 3 turnovers, a turnover on downs, and a missed field goal. If Chicago were anything resembling talented, they would have won with ease. But alas, they must dream of that top draft pick to come. No point in victory here. All it would do is fuck up their long-term ambitions. I only wish for more Nathan Peterman sightings in your endless quest. We've had quite a lot of teams reach playoff land this week, didn't we? It doesn't mean we're anywhere close to settling how things will shake out. Philly still holds number 1 seed and can clinch their division with either a win or Dallas loss. Minnesota and San Francisco both clinched their division since there's no elite team rivaling them in division. It's only positioning they're playing for. They won't have to worry about Tampa Bay. They are ass. And their division is even more ass. Please delete it from our existence. The winner of this shit pile will probably be hosting a playoff game against the Cowboys. And we will wish for death. The other 2 wildcard spots are currently held by the Giants and Commies despite the G-Men winning last week. Seattle is falling hard while Detroit is rumbling back into the picture after being left for dead. Green Bay hangs on by a thread. And so does the rest of the NFC South. This is gonna be quite fucky, isn't it? Everyone left, you know what to say.
Don't get eliminated!
The rivalry game. A classic staple where the only thing expected out of both teams is their best. Where bragging rights are on the line. The greatest prize of any in the NFL. Philly has the division all but locked up, but there will be a curveball thrown in. Jalen Hurts is injured. To replace him, the living embodiment of Florida man shotguns a beer on the sideline and shotguns his team to offensive drives. Gardner Minshew is that man, and he's allowing us to witness a spectacle. Jerry Jones loves his star power, and both teams are showing it in spades. A gun show where only the best weapons are on display. The Eagles flashing their offensive talent by holding a slight lead throughout, while Dallas counters every attacking kind. Philly maintains advantage in the 4th, but they start to lose sight of the prize. First offense, a game-changing interception by Florida man because Quez Watkins didn't really fight for the ball. Dallas only got a field goal out of it, but they didn't need to do all that much otherwise, because Miles Sanders somehow botched a routine toss play. The Cowboys did enough to put the game away. And like Philly in their previous matchup, Dallas wins against the opposition's backup. So they're both even now. Get in your shelters, everyone. Cowboys fans are going to be obnoxious about this one. Once again, though, merely responding in kind. I wish there really was a nuclear option. Or if Philly didn't stall out in the red zone. With a few big losses this week, the NFL playoff picture has become a mosh pit, as has been written for time eternal. The NFC East is still the same scenario as before. Winning clinch for Philly, and that includes the number 1 seed. If Dallas loses once as well, they are doomed to play as a road team in the wild card. The NFC South is still the division that should not exist, and Tampa Bay can seal it away with a win against the Panthers. If Carolina wins, though, we continue down the chaos timeline. New Orleans is still technically alive, but will need a lot to happen to win the South. With wildcards, Dallas most likely will be headed to the NFC South winner. The Giants still sit comfy, a game ahead of Washington for the 2nd spot, with the Commies taking last seat for now. With Detroit and Seattle both losing last week, Green Bay can bullshit their way to a postseason berth with a few more things happening in their favor. But they need the Lions and Seahawks to keep losing. The Saints can also clinch a wild card, but it's an extreme long shot. But it's a shot nonetheless. And if you have that, you can still chant the rule.
Don't get eliminated!
I appreciate that the Eagles are doing everything in their power to nerf their abilities for the sake of storylines. Normally, Gardner Minshew starting should be enough to beat a team as middling and uninspired as the New Orleans Saints. That would be in a normal situation. The only explanation I have is that Jerry Jones bribed Gardner with oodles of cash and/or scantily clad women. It's the only logical answer to how Minshew Mania became a carrier of disease. Honestly, I think Jerry Boy did it for the entire team. They didn't really self-destruct. That would involve going out to some form of sizable lead to begin with. They just didn't show up. They woke up hungover after a night of being Lawrence Taylored with hookers at their hotel rooms and lollygagged through this contest. So now not only does Dallas have a legitimate shot of stealing a division that should have been locked up weeks ago, Philadelphia is now in a state of freefall. Jalen Hurts should be back and the Giants have nothing to play for now, but I doubt they're going to give the Eagles a break. You wonder why I'm not talking about the Saints' performance? That's simple. They don't deserve it. This win meant nothing for them. Every outcome needed to stay alive failed to happen. They're fucked. Perhaps next time they won't utterly choke against old-ass Tom Brady. The NFC East is also somehow still up for grabs, with Philadelphia being winning clinch for the third week in a row. If Dallas wins and Philly loses next week, we all die. Every other division is locked up, but number one seed is still up for grabs. Philly should have it, but if they lose and San Fran wins, the Niners get it. If both of them lose and Dallas wins, we all die more. Then the 7th seed. Green Bay now controls their own destiny, God help us all. If Green Bay suffers another January home loss, Seattle would have to win to get it. If both the Packers and Seahawks lose, Detroit would slingshot back to the top. It's a lot to digest, and hard to comprehend considering situations. But we must remember,
Don't get eliminated!
none of us knew how it happened, but Philly is in a must-win situation. Fortunately for them, two things. First, Jalen Hurts is back, merely to shake off the rust of being out for a couple of games. Secondly, the G-Men chose to not take revenge for 2020. They rested their starters, resulting in Davis Webb finally getting his first start in the NFL, in his second tour of duty with the team. Therefore, it's to little surprise that the Eagles were able to limp across the finish line just ahead of their opponents. The situation was far from pretty, but Philly got it done. They've won both the NFC East and the number one seed. There are concerns, but it was nothing but a tune-up for greater challenges that lie ahead. They now get the privilege to rest up and prepare for their next opponent. Whomever that may be. Could even be the Giants if they beat Minnesota. You know what shocks me the most? That Kenny Golladay managed to make his first touchdown catch as a Giant in the most ironic way possible, with an outstanding grab in garbage time. And there you have one of the sloppiest NFL seasons we've seen in a long time. Depending on how you view things, it's either thanks to a revival of defense or incredibly terrible offense. I'm on the side of the latter, but when you see a collapse of anything resembling discipline and technique, it tends to be like that. But as the playoffs await, it's time to get sappy and sentimental. I consider Sportsball as a project of sorts, and it feels weird when it's over. I want to thank you for joining me for another year of this madness, and I wish you all nothing but the best. It's been 6 seasons since I started this series, and I somehow haven't lost my damn mind yet. Perhaps these playoffs will do the trick. I'll see you all for the Haters Guide. Remember when everyone and their mother wanted Howie Roseman fired from his position 2 years ago? Seems insane to think, but there was some very real steam to it back then. So many questionable moves and draft decisions covered up a dark secret. Roseman is an ardent scholar of the Necronomicon. With his black magic, he was able to turn the fortunes of Philly near overnight. Yes, we will gladly take a premium wide receiver in A.J. Brown for a pittance. Yes, the team defense will be forged from the greatness of both in-house and free agent talent. Yes, Jalen Hurts will make an incredible leap to emerge as an elite QB. Behind that offensive line, he will have all the time he wants. An all-in push with an endless wave of talent, ring chasers, hired guns, whatever they desire. With Hurts on a rookie deal, this is the best chance the Eagles will have at securing another ring. I just hope that end-of-year skid was just a fluke. You don't want your division rivals laughing at you. Again. These playoffs have played out as I've expected. A handful of good teams surrounded by shit. Two of the best have made it here, and the AFC is being represented by a common one. Time is a circle. No matter what everyone fancies about the league and its teams, the same outcomes tend to occur over and over again. We may speak of the rivals ready to take the Chiefs off their pedestal, the Chargers and their talented offense, the Broncos bringing in Russell Wilson in a huge move, the Raiders managing to exist, not to mention Buffalo and their revenge tour were gearing up to finally exhume their demons. Kansas City was getting cocky. Their haughtiness cost them the last few seasons. The Super Bowl against Tampa Bay where they were crushed by hydraulic press. Don't forget last year where they went out to a sizable lead against the Bengals only to be one-upped. The King was seemingly on his last breath, facing a deep cap crunch, losing one of their best offensive weapons in Tyreek Hill via trade. You'd think the age of the Chiefs would be over, right? Not really. When you aim for the King, you best not miss. While inherently flawed, there are still weapons out the wazoo. And with Patrick Mahomes under center, they will always have a chance at greatness. Even on one leg, he will make magic happen. All the while, every broadcaster takes turns filleting him during games. There is some justification to it. He's the new face of football, you could argue. A man who enjoys ketchup on steak and driving a stake through the heart of his enemies. This includes Cincinnati. Oh, what a brutal sight that was to witness. The weapons that flank him are newer faces, but still threats nonetheless. There is a number 10 similar to Tyreek, but don't be fooled. That's merely Isaiah Pacheco, who's blossomed into a playmaker in his own right. Not bad for a 7th-round rookie. Jerick McKinnon is still kicking as a specialist in the backfield, and staying healthy as well. At wideout, it's a changed group. McCole Hardman's still here, but there's no real headliner of the bunch. Weapons aplenty, however. The main ones being offseason pickups in Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Not to mention Kadarius Toney, whenever he's healthy. They're allowed to be free because another main piece is still around. Travis Kelce. Wherever he is, you must be wary. He will punish defenses no matter what they do. Opposing fans throughout the world will scream why nobody's covering Kelce. Well, that's because he's like Teflon. Nothing sticks. Not to mention that strong offensive line led by Creed Humphrey and Orlando Brown. It's a deadly weapon all its own. And they're not down to backup tackles this time around. Their defensive line is the catalyst for all hope on that end. Frank Clark and Chris Jones are the cornerstones of it. Jones has been a beast, but Clark has been disappointing this season. George Karlaftis and Carlos Dunlap are other formidable weapons on this front. All teams have a weakness, however, and this one's flaws in pass protection. It's one of the worst in the league. And despite all that Willie Gay and Nick Bolton do, it can't hide the fact that their secondary is young and inexperienced. They lost Javarius Ward and the Honey Badger in free agency last offseason, and L'Jarius Sneed suffered injury in the game against Cincy. So if he's not healthy, they'll have to rely on Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie, Justin Reed, and Juan Thornhill to man the fort. Not exactly striking the most fear into defenses. You shouldn't scoff at them, however. Kansas City is in a position where it does its best. Hungry. Looking to upend those that doubt them. We made that mistake earlier, and we've suffered the consequences for it. The Chiefs will be going to their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. As that happens, Andy Reid eats the doubters of this team in the form of a delicious cheeseburger. This will be his 4th trip to the big game, and perhaps his 2nd ring in the process. To get that, however, he'll have to go up against a foe he knows very, very well. This is one of the few times where we will willingly go back to 2020. It was a year of hell, especially for the Eagles. To the glory of every division rival in the NFC East, Philly was terrible. Carson Wentz collapsing under the weight of Doug Peterson and his own propensity for hero ball. Years upon years of drafting fuck-ups. A flawed roster with next to no hope on the way. Howie Roseman about to be deservedly roasted on an open fire. Just under 3 years after a Super Bowl win, they were relegated to accusations of tanking in their final game against Washington. After such a disaster, things needed to change. And Peterson was cast into the abyss for both losing the plot and losing a power struggle. Things looking mighty bleak for the Eagles, right? A bunch of baffling moves would usually signal the doom of all involved. However, Philly chose to unleash their deadliest weapon, a conversion to Satanism. Delving into the dark arts, Roseman found ways to take a terrible situation and save it from falling into a precipice. I would advise against making draft day trades with him. They tend to usually work out in Philly's favor. The quarterback he's found his prize. Many questioned him drafting Jalen Hurts. He was cast off from Alabama. You have Carson Wentz. His upside at the NFL level is rather limited. That was until this year. In 2022, he burst from the doldrums to become one of the upper-tier QBs in the league. A weapon with a surprisingly accurate and potent arm. A man blessed with maneuverability and finesse in his feet. A true dual-threat option. And oh, the weapons he has to choose from. Try running back, where he not only has Miles Sanders, but the spiritual successor to Darren Sproles and Boston Scott, and a third formidable option in Kenneth Gainwell. Try tight end, where Dallas Goedert has taken the reins from a traded Zach Ertz to become an ever-important safety valve for Hurts. But wide receiver, that's where they really shine. Philly finally hit on a drafted wideout. I know, it's stunning. Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside busted so Devontae Smith could fly. And catch incredible passes. And become one of the best wide receivers in the game. He doesn't get enough attention. You know why? Go back to draft time. Jacksonville breaking the bank for Christian Kirk opened up an opportunity. A legitimate headliner was ripe for the taking. And Philly refused to look a gift horse in the mouth. A.J. Brown, it's time for you and your wallet to shine like gangbusters. The man that helps Philly's offense become a dynamo. I have to give credit to that offensive line as well. One of the best units in the game, bar none. Even with an injured Lane Johnson at right tackle. By the way, has anyone mentioned that Jason Kelce is Travis Kelce's brother yet? Are you tired of hearing about it? Good, because here's at least 50 more statements as such. Here are 100 statements on how loaded their defensive line and edge rushers are. 4 men with at least 10 sacks. Freshly paid Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Javon Hargrave, longtime vet Brendan Graham. Fletcher Cox is still kicking ass as a 3-tech. Not to mention they just drafted an absolute beast in Jordan Davis when he's healthy. They've loaded up with vets in an all-in push. Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Robert Quinn. Quinn's barely played. It's a threat all its own. At linebacker, TJ Edwards and Chargers refugee Kaiser White man the fort, but in the secondary, it's another all-in push. Over the past few years, trades and acquisitions for the likes of Big Play Slay, James Bradbury, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Not to mention homegrown talents like Avonte Maddox and Marcus Epps. Thanks for Epps, Minnesota. Philly is no longer the Rocky Balboa clone they were the last time they were here. They're a legitimate juggernaut. A team that's crushed nearly everyone that stood in their path. It may have been a ridiculously easy road to get back here, but the road still must be traveled regardless. It's also a chance of revenge against the man that was a symbol for past failures in Andy Reid. Him and Donovan McNabb were enemies of the state for a long time. And while both Reid and the team have experienced success since parting ways, revenge is always desired. So what'll it be moving forward? A Kansas City barbecue or a Philadelphia nightmare? Only one way to find out. Any given Sunday is what everyone says. We've seen it happen over and over throughout the regular season, but these playoffs have been rather predictable. Although I kind of expected it. To me, Kansas City's secondary is just too weak to make a huge difference against Philly's passing attack. Their defensive line must get pressure to have any chance. I don't know if they can here. Cincy's O-line was weakened, but Philly's is still formidable. By that alone, I'm going with the Eagles to win. Is it really a jinx? All I know is that we'll be so tired of the storylines we'll be dying for the game to start. In the lead-up to the big game, Roger Goodell stated that the product the NFL puts out has never been better. Your eyes may point to the constant ref ball, terrible team offense, and sloppy play this season and call him a liar. But your mind is lying to you. You may not have noticed it. What you saw in Super Bowl 57 was perfection. Every second of play immaculately sculpted, choreographed, and manufactured to create a game worthy of Kurosawa. Orson Welles stands in awe at how quickly the scriptwriters churned out a masterpiece. They cooked this baby like it's Rihanna's child. This isn't a congrats video for anyone in particular, but this is a tribute to the perfect NFL script. Pomp and circumstance everywhere you look. Endless offense led by 2 quarterbacks at the top of their game. Pristine football that the NFL so desires out of their product. A perfectly curated field of play where everyone slides and trips as if the surface was caked in ice. Ridiculously long reviews that knock the wind out of the game. Doinked field goals. The greatest blessing of the modern age. Blows being thrown by means of outstanding play all game long. Patrick Mahomes making magic happen on this slippery field. And don't forget the real MVP being his Toradol injection at halftime. And nobody can cover Travis Kelce. At all. Jalen Hurts deciding he needed more of a challenge by fucking the ball. Paying tribute to Pele by kicking it to the opposition for the easiest touchdown one will ever score. Oh, it was a fantastic performance. One that kept us all at the edge of our seats. Defenses could barely make any sort of stop. The Eagles' QB sneak was so OP it will probably be nerfed in the next patch. Everything was going according to plan. A great game of football where it's going to come down to the wire. The audience captivated with every play. It's a good show, but it's missing something. But here's where this game becomes a stroke of genius. An anticlimactic climax. Another great game ruined by ref ball. A ticky-tacky penalty that wasn't called at all until that point. Now that's a way to piss everyone off. It'll help Philly conveniently forget that their defensive front could get no pressure on Mahomes whatsoever. The Chiefs may have won on the stat sheet, but the real winner is the NFL. We're addicted to their product. And they continue to rake in the dough with another masterpiece. And therefore, I raise my glass to the perfect NFL script. May Roger Goodell's future bust in Canton be the biggest of them all.
Let me get the big guy in here. Come on, waddle over here.